Good afternoon and welcome to another broadcast of the Veterans Forum. Today is the 21st of March 2013. We're coming to you from the studios of Bedford Community Television here in Bedford, New Hampshire. And for those of you who may not have an idea what the show is about, let me give you a brief overview. My name is Bob Stevens, and I've been lucky enough and honored to be able to run this show, do it since 2004. We've had maybe 100, 110 different interviews from different guys and gals in all the branches of the service you could name, and some they didn't even want to talk about. The program is coordination with the Library of Congress's Veterans History Project, wherein, since 2000, they've been asking stations such as this, and guys like me and others, if they can and will share those experiences with veterans, male or female, who served in any branch in any war from that point on. World War II, Vietnam, Korea, Desert Storm, Desert Shield, and whatever the latest ones are called. The basic idea is this, if you will, as an example. That history is a great big picture puzzle, and each one of us had a job to do, and we did it. Some good, some bad. But the bottom line is, each one of us can then contribute our piece to that puzzle to make it a better picture, so the people coming after us who may or may not be interested will have a better appreciation. One of the things we're trying to really do is to make sure that the history that's been recorded has been reported by the guys and gals who made that history, so that there can't be any confusion as to was it or was it not a real situation. We have all kinds of disclaimers lately, but this way we know it will be done properly. The name, quite simply, is the Veterans History Project. Today, for example, we have another guy, just happened to be a CB. I happen to be one too. There's 2 or 3 different generations apart. But I'll ask Andy to introduce himself, dates of service and so forth, and where he now lives, and then we'll segue into making the rest of the program. My friend,
Hi.
You're on, if you will. Your name, spell your last name for the record.
I'm Andrew F. Mackey, and it's M-A-C-K-E-Y. My middle name is Franklin, after Franklin Roosevelt.
Oh, I thought it was Franklin, Mass.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I was in the service in the Navy Seabees from December of 1962 until June of 1966.
Wow, so you had some fun.
I did.
Amen. Now, where do you now live?
I live in Greenville, New Hampshire now.
Okay, that's west of here?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I'm learning the state. I just moved in a while ago. Well, now that we know who you are and where you now are living, as with most of the shows, we've found out, if we can, with your help, go back to such mundane things but important things like, where and when were you born? What was your family life? Did you have any brothers and sisters or any friends or relatives in the service? Before you went into the service, what was your life like? High school, college, whatever. You want to give us some of that data, if you will.
All right. I was born February 24th, 1945, in Elliott Hospital in Keene, New Hampshire. And I grew up in Harrisville, New Hampshire, where my father lived since 1903. I had 3 brothers and a sister, and I was the only one that had gone in the service until my younger brother went into Vietnam 8 years after I did, I think.
Oh.
But I had a normal childhood, I guess.
What does normal mean? Because normal to you may mean something completely different. What kind of things did you do? What kind of jobs did you have to do? What kind of chores? Simple things that you had to get done to make your day around.
One of the chores was bringing the wood in, and then when we switched from wood in the kitchen stove to kerosene, I brought in the jug of kerosene whenever it got empty.
You ever spill any and get that smell throughout the house? Yeah. No matter how many windows you opened, it took a long time to get rid of that sucker.
And my sister and I were both in 4-H, and every spring she'd get 25 broiler chickens, and I'd get 25 laying chickens, and she'd have hers all dressed out by the end of the summer, and I was still feeding mine until
comes Christmas.
Right, and then we ate them. But you know,
what was life like? As far as schoolwork, were you a good student, bad student? Anything that interested you? Or
I
I know normal is a
student.
dumb word, but
Yeah, no,
what's normal?
I was a good student. I liked school. I liked the meals we had, and I was, relatively smart, I guess. So
Oh, don't apologize. There's so few of us left.
when the year that I should have been in the 5th grade, there were only 3 of us in the town of Harrisville of the right age to be in the 5th grade. So they put us in the 6th grade.
Oh, then that doesn't hold you in the 4th two times then, huh?
Right.
Okay, that's good.
And
Any special subjects did you like that got your interest?
history, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, and I did wood shop in high school. Enjoyed that. Yeah.
Oh, was it a technical school or just one of the manual training or manual arts we used to call it?
Actually, it was a high school then where
Okay.
you had everything from shop to Latin and physics and whatnot. So
Okay. Any sports?
no, I was only 5'3" when I graduated from high school. So
You wouldn't have made a good tackle then.
no, probably not. And my folks didn't have a car, so staying after school for that kind of stuff was kind of out. So
Oh.
and I'd rather go fishing anyway than
Oh. Now in the wintertime, did they have anything like skiing back in those days? as
They
do
did.
today?
We skated mostly though.
Oh,
Yeah,
ice hockey, pickup hockey?
yeah, pick up hockey on the pond.
Yeah.
But
Okay. Now, what got you into the Navy? Were you drafted? Did you enlist, or just kind of gravitate towards it?
I enlisted when my senior term paper for the history class in high school was on the growth of the U.S. Navy, and I found it very interesting and found out more about the Seabees. And because I like carpentry, I figured that would be a good branch to go
Amen.
into. And then when I went to the recruiter, I found out how hard it was to get in the Seabees, because at that time there were only 10 battalions of Seabees in the country. So 5 in Davisville, Rhode Island, and 5 in Port Hueneme, California. So
Let's stop there. This is always an interesting thing from the guys. The transition from PFC, Proud Free Civilian, to boot camp. How was the first couple of days? How'd you get into it? Where'd you go? How'd you get there? What was your introduction like?
they recruiter had me go to Boston, Mass, to actually get inducted and to get sworn in.
Oh,
And
how'd you get there? Bus, streetcar, hitchhike?
actually, my brother-in-law brought me down in his car, and the family came along. And it was the first time my mother had ever been to Boston. So,
Wow!
big city.
Big deal. Hey,
Yeah.
capitalize when you can.
I went in before Christmas, I think, so the recruiter could get a good December number.
Oh,
And so I stayed one night in Boston, got sworn in, and went home on a bus the next day. And then the first part of January, went back to Boston and flew to Great Lakes from
Flew?
Logan. Yeah.
wow.
No train for us.
Oh, excuse me, sir.
Yeah. And
How was your greeting when you got there? How was the weather? Let's start there.
well,
That
it
time
was
of year.
January, so one of the days it was 36 below, and we had our classes in the barracks because it was too cold to
To
go.
go out, you couldn't go out.
No. But I had been in the Boy Scouts, so I was used to being with groups of people, but not that many people. And my voice hadn't changed yet; it was still soprano, so I was unusual in the group because I was only 17. So,
Yeah, get down here, son.
but after a bout of laryngitis, my voice changed, and
Oh, good.
and
Now, what they do? Walk us through, if you, from memory, the day that the chief got you line up here, follow the guy in front of you as far as taking off your clothes, getting rid of your old clothes, sending the stuff home, getting your new outfit, and your issues. How does that work?
well, it was a long time ago,
I know. You should remember it.
The first week was getting fitted for all your clothes and stuff, and then once you got them issued, then everybody stenciled their serial number and their name on all their clothes.
Amen.
And most of us got them on right side up, so it was pretty good. And then once you actually had a uniform to wear, then everything got packed up and shipped home.
Yeah.
And then it was.
What was the first couple of days like? Any kind of an orientation or a special program, or just follow the guy in front of you, yes or no, sir?
Some orientation there, and more physical exams and stuff, and they gave a bunch of tests. One of them was a test of sonar sounds to see how well you did with that.
Mm-hmm. They're going to make a SEAL out of you or something?
Well, I think they were looking for subsailors, and they that's another story. But
amen.
my company commander was a subsailor, and because I was short and easygoing and did well on the sonar test, he tried for 3.5 months to get me to go into subs, and I kept saying I wanted to be in the Seabees, and he says, well, not many people get that, and I said, I know, but I did.
Plus you get extra pay, and
but we had classes in seamanship and knot tying and firefighting.
The Navy and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. The
firefighting was good because it was so cold. The oil tanks were frozen over, so they.
No fire?
No fire training.
That's like taking swimming lessons. The boat's going down.
Well, but that was one I almost didn't make, because they have you jump off a 10-foot tower into a pool, and then swim around the pool and stay in the water. I don't know, it's like probably only 5 minutes, but it seemed like forever. And I was just about ready to grab the edge of the pool, and the company commander looked at his watch and shook his head, and like 30 seconds later they said, okay, everybody out. But if you didn't last for that period of time, you had to do swimming lessons every night after supper. So I got out of it.
Yeah. How much time did you draw on KP on night duty, fire watch?
Actually, I never ended up with that, because I was the second choice for company clerk. The fellow that was chosen first was a college graduate that realized he didn't want to be in the Navy, so they let him go. And yeah, and so then the company commander said, "How about you?"
Okay, Andy, where's your right hand?
Yeah. So I had my own office, and I assigned everybody else.
Everything, all the good stuff. Huh?
Yeah.
Then what?
And then the company commander taught me how to sign his name, so that if somebody needed to go to the sick bay or something like that, he wouldn't have to come in at 5 in the morning to do it.
The power of the pen.
Yeah, and I also had to tally up where each of our people were every day, how many were mess cooking, how many were here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And the only day that we got a very good inspection with everybody had clean T-shirts and whatnot, I'd added up my columns wrong, and we didn't.
There were more guys there than you had in the base. They were so sparkling clean, I couldn't count them.
But overall, boot camp wasn't that bad.
Now, how long was boot? 8, 10 weeks?
Actually, it was 13.
13? Oh.
Well, it was actually 2 weeks longer for me, because my folks couldn't afford dental care. So my teeth were in bad shape. So the second week I was there, they pulled 5 teeth at once, and then they started filling the rest of them, and so that having 5 teeth pulled set me back a week.
More than a week sometime.
Yeah, I guess it was 2 weeks actually.
Okay, now and when you put all back together, then where did you then ship to? Was it Davisville, Hueneme, Gulfport?
Port Hueneme, to go to what they called A school, which is the basic builder school.
Okay, now tell us guys what that's all about, because there's a lot of talk about the Seabees, but very few people know what you actually had to do, what we had to do.
Yeah. Well, at Port Hueneme, they had a school for each of the trades, basically. There were, in the Seabees, there's equipment operators, construction mechanics, plumbers, electricians, builders, engineering aides, they call, which is surveying, basically.
Yeah, surveying, good, rod and chain guys.
Yeah, and I hope I haven't left anybody out. Oh, but each one of those trades had a school, and the builder school, they taught us how to frame houses, they taught us how to put hot roofs on buildings, and then we would make little 10 by 10 framed sheds, basically, and then the electricians would use those to practice their wiring in, and plumbing and whatnot. And then, you know, like the hot roof training, they put it down on basically on paper so it didn't stick to the roof. And the roof we trained on was only 3 feet off the ground, so it wasn't too bad.
No skydiving.
No, so the first thing you had to do was roll up the previous class's roof and get that out of the way, and then put down your own. So.
Now, how long was that training before you were qualified or accepted? Were you seaman-induced by then, seaman first?
Yeah, constructionman, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Forget.
Yeah.
That all group.
Right. And it was probably 4 months total there.
Okay, now did you get any leave or liberty
We
to come
did.
back here, or just to go up and down the coast?
Just weekends, you know, go up and down the coast. And went to Disneyland, went up to San Diego to visit a fellow that I had been in boot camp with, and he was going to radio man school at Treasure Island in San Francisco Bay.
Mm-hmm.
And I took a bus up there. It was like 16 hours. And I didn't leave early enough on Sunday to get back, so I ended up flying back.
Well, you flew back?
I flew back to LA, and then I had to go to the USO to borrow enough money for bus fare to get back to Port Hueneme.
Port Hueneme.
Yeah.
That sounds like you had some fun. Any particular towns that you like to visit out there, as far as how they received you as a serviceman, sailor, whatever? Any special treatment, or like Santa Barbara, Oxnard, LA?
Oxnard, you know, was a typical Navy town, really.
Yeah.
Santa Barbara, I think they'd rather we weren't there, but you know, we used to go up because they used to have some real nice car shows and stuff in Santa Barbara, so, and it wasn't that far away.
And then when did you ship out? Where'd your first assignment?
From there, I went home for 2 weeks, and then flew from Keene, New Hampshire to New York, and from New York, I flew to Argentia, Newfoundland, where the MCB-4 had been there for a few months.
You hadn't been assigned to the MCB at the time when you took your leave?
No.
Okay, all right. Just trying to find myself.
And but MCB-4 was doing some base maintenance things, really. And Argentia, Newfoundland was an airstrip for the naval planes that were doing sub searches.
Okay, PBYs, PBMs?
Yeah, P3s, I think. They've gone to something newer. And the Coast Guard also flew search and rescue and iceberg patrols out of there. And, you know, so we built a new Navy exchange, which is a PX to any other service.
Or a frame building?
It was a metal building designed by a company in New Jersey that I didn't know about the ice in Newfoundland because it had a flat roof that pitched to the middle, and then the ceiling was actually suspended 4 feet down from that, so there was 4 feet of frozen drain pipe that didn't let the water out very good. So they had some problems with that.
Now, how was the weather? Was it constantly cold, sub-zero?
I got there in August.
So it wasn't too bad.
So it wasn't bad at all, no. And, you know, I went a couple of weekends, went into the next town to get a pizza and swap coins with a Canadian Mountie that collected U.S. coins, and I started collecting Newfoundland coins. And it, you know.
Must have been interesting and nothing else.
Yeah.
Now, did you have any extended time of liberty there, like to go to back down to Halifax or Nova Scotia or anything like that, Maine?
By the time I got there, the battalion was getting a little behind on some of the projects, so they started a night crew, and I worked on a night crew and doing ceiling tile and floor tiles and that kind of stuff.
Oh, still keeping your hand at it, though.
Yeah.
Okay. When you finally completed, what did you do then? Say, okay, here's the keys, turn it over to some civilian, or the Navy run it?
Navy ran it.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the main part of the battalion went back, you know, a few weeks before the rear echelon, they called it, and we packed up the rest of the equipment that we had, and got on an old World War II LSD, which was the type of ship that the back opens up so they can run landing craft in, and then they pump the water out. So we put our trucks and stuff down in that hold, and then they have a helicopter deck above that, so we had more stuff there. And they're kind of a flat bottom boat, though, so when we went out of the harbor into the North Atlantic in October, the ship not only went side to side, but front to back also.
Oh, yeah.
The top of the props would come out of the water. And I got seasick, and I figured we weren't ever going to see land again.
Yeah, you had to get better before you could die.
Right. But that was the only time I ever got seasick.
No?
And even when we had to go down in the hold and check all of the cables that anchored all the equipment in, and every time you bend down to tighten the turnbuckle, it'd be a pile of barf there from the previous person.
Yeah, pre-warmed meals, if you like.
Yep.
Meals not ready to eat.
No, that was a challenge, is eating it coming out of the North Atlantic too.
Seriously, did you have any? And this sounds silly, but abandoned ship drills as you're coming back down?
Actually, I don't remember doing that.
Because the North Atlantic in the middle of February is not the place you want to go overboard.
No, and this would have been October anyway. So I mean, it was still cold though. But,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean there was ice on the pier when we left, but.
And where'd you come back to? Davisville?
Davisville, Rhode Island.
Right. Now, is that your home port, or were you stationed in Hueneme?
Davisville was the home port for MCB-4 and 4 other battalions.
Mm-hmm.
And then we stayed there for a month or so, and then because the CBs are attached to Marine outfits, every 2 years they send a battalion to Camp Lejeune to practice with the Marines.
Oh, that must have been fun.
It was. I wasn't real thrilled about crawling under the barbed wire with a machine gun shooting over the top.
You wished you hadn't.
But it was interesting,
Oh, yeah.
And
were you treated any different when you get down there? Of course, hadn't been a veteran now. You've been overseas, had some kind of foreign duty, if you will, when you got to Lejeune. Did they look at you and say, "Oh, those," or "Hey, buddy"?
Well, it was kind of all those, I guess, but it was funny because the fellows who'd been in the battalion for several years, when it came to some of the real grunt training, they just stood on the side and had a cigarette, and then us young guys,
kids play.
Right, got to do all that stuff.
Done that too.
Yeah, and because I was in the same battalion for 3 years, I got to go to Camp Lejeune twice. So, but it was enjoyable.
Okay. Now, you haven't to do any parading with them? When
No.
they had Saturday parades and that kind of stuff?
No. Played some war games and stuff, but that was it.
Oh.
Yeah. And went to visit the city of Raleigh while we were down there. That was a very nice city. And
now, then where'd you get next? Where did you sign next? Because there've been 3 or 4 different places. I've checked your paper. After that, where'd you come back? Where'd you go next?
when I came back from Camp Lejeune, the main part of the battalion was going to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, to do some work there. But 125 of us had a separate detachment where we went to Washington, D.C., and picked up a new type of portable runway that the manufacturer had put down. And
Replace the mats and liners?
yeah, it's an aluminum sandwich with like sand paint on the top, but the pretty nice system anyway. But so the manufacturer put it down there, and then the Marines played on it, and all the brass came down from Washington to see how it worked, and then they had us pick it up, and it's in 20 by 2 foot pieces, so it all has to be taken apart by hand, crated up, put on a flat car. They took it down to Paris Island, and then we put it back down again to train us how to do it, and then the Marines practiced on it there.
Mm-hmm. Now, they're practicing, if you will, at aircraft or mechanization guys?
Yeah, regular, A4s or whatever they were, the fighters were at the time,
Always keep your fingers out of the way. Remember, 2 into 2 doesn't go comfortably. They still, still cracked, and that's a couple of weeks ago. Okay, where next?
From there, our detachment went to Vieques, Puerto Rico. And at the time, the Navy wanted to get some of their bombs and other armament out of Bayonne, New Jersey. So part of Vieques was an ammunition depot during the Second World War. So there were still bunkers in the hillsides, and the group that we were with, the steel workers, refurbished the doors and stuff on the bunkers. And there wasn't a lot of work for carpenters, so they put several of us in the rock quarry drilling.
With drilling?
Yeah, with wagon drills that had been left there from World War II. So, yeah. And
anybody get hurt?
nothing serious, no.
Oh, because once in a while we used to have those air hoses pop.
Yeah, no, they were very good about it, making sure we
you don't want to get near.
Wired them together, so they didn't. And one of the times we were changing the steel, these old wagon drills, you had like a 10-foot piece of steel that you drill down, and then when you reached the bottom of that, you'd raise the hammer, take that one out, and then put in a 16-foot steel, and then drill further. And one of the times we have to reverse the hammer to take the thing out, and a fellow was holding a long pipe wrench there, and I turned it the wrong way, so instead of reversing it, went ahead and whacked him in the leg, and it didn't break it, but
he called you several things.
He did, yeah.
No, none of which you can repeat in public.
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah. But that was an interesting job too.
Yeah, did you ever draw any liberty down there?
We did.
Was you 7 on, 7 off, or?
No, we had every weekend off.
Okay. Open gangway?
What's that?
Open gangway, you could come and go as long as you're back by Monday morning?
Well, no, we kind of had to be back Saturday night, you know. And they would throw us in the back of a 6-by, and there were 2 towns on Vieques, one that the Marines had liberty in and one that the Seabees had liberty in.
Near the twins shall meet.
Right. And we were short of petty officers. So there was a fellow that was just a seaman, well, a constructionman like I was, that was tall, so they made him one of the shore patrol. And they made me one of the sergeant of the guard, even though I wasn't anywhere near sergeant yet. And so I always drew the midnight watch from midnight till 4 in the morning, and which wasn't so bad either, I guess.
Yeah, but did you have much business, if you will, as far as guys getting out, getting a little bit overexcited, a little bit drunk and nasty?
Quite often, yeah. And we had some fellows that went after a native fellow's girlfriend and had somebody come chasing after him with a machete while we were throwing them in the back of the truck.
That gets your attention.
It does, yeah. But overall, it was very enjoyable.
Was there any real conflict as far as fraternization, non-fraternization?
No, no.
You could go into town without having to go 3 or 4 at a group.
No, you could go 1 or 2. Really, it wasn't a problem.
It was a pleasant place to be when you had some time off.
Yeah, it was nice. Yeah, and
okay, where next?
From there, we went back to Davisville, Rhode Island, and one of the classes I had was in nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare, and they taught us how to use a Geiger counter, and we had to wear a badge to make sure we weren't exposed to too much radiation and stuff. And that was interesting, I guess.
Was that a prelude to any other special training, or was it just something that was in the regular scheme of things?
I think the regular scheme.
Did you sign up for it? Did they tell you when to take?
No, they picked you to go, I think.
You voluntarily
right.
went.
And I think that was about the only schooling that I had at that period. And then from there, we loaded up on a ship and went to Rota, Spain.
Oh, that must have been fun.
It was nice, yeah. Rota's on the Atlantic, and that's a naval air station and also one of the ports for nuclear submarines. And what we were doing was building assembling prefabricated houses so that the subsailors' families could
To bring them over.
could be in Spain instead of flying a whole sub crew back and forth to
It made sense.
Norfolk or somewhere
Yeah.
like that, and that was like any other big construction job, really.
What, 2 months, 5 months, 6 months?
About 6 months.
Okay, so you had a good vacation then too.
Yeah. Well,
I know you
didn't have-
had to work, but you figured the geography that you went with, as they say, all expenses paid, and you were in good company and fed every day.
definitely the service is the poor person's way to see the world.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, I would have never gotten to Spain on my own, I'm sure. And the town of Jerez, which wasn't very far away, was the port wine capital of Spain. And not that I drank much then, but
Did you practice at all?
I drank a little of it, but I'm not really a wine person anyway. So, and then Porto Santa Maria, which is the port that Columbus sailed from to come here, was not that far away either.
Oh, so a little history.
Yeah, you walk down the street and the granite doorsteps are worn down 2 inches in the middle. So I mean they've been there since the 1400s probably. So.
That's the best part about it. We think of a house around here, boy, that's 150 years old. And over some of those places, this is the 19th generation. My great-great-great-grandfather laid the foundation, and we built to it as the families grew. Now, when you're down there, did you have a chance to do any of the touristy kind of stuff, like bullfights or parades and running of the bulls and that?
We didn't get to see that because that's kind of on the other side of Spain.
Okay, but I kind of got
it. But the city of Cadiz has been a city forever. There was a Roman road that went to it. So they had a bull ring there that was built, I don't know, 14 to 1500, something like that. And that was pretty nice. There was actually a bull ring in Rota, but it was for amateurs, so.
They didn't kill.
Well, they tried, but it didn't.
You get nailed before
No,
they
it
get
was
killed.
kind of.
No, that's kind of gory, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, some of it, yeah. But I mean, to see a good bullfighter, I mean, it just, and the bull drops, and that's, it's nice. I mean, it's not anything
Quick
else.
dispatch.
Yeah. And then we spent a long weekend in Gibraltar while we were there.
Oh.
And that was very nice.
You tie up with the baboons down there?
The monkeys, yeah, we did see them. And
How'd you like them?
Well, they were an oddity, I guess, and went to the casino there and lost the money, but no big money, so. But
Did you ever go inland?
We went to Seville,
Okay.
and Seville's a beautiful city, incredible old cathedral and stuff. I mean, just amazing, for somebody
Any
that
kind
liked
of
history.
fiestas that you attended while you were there?
Any kind of
Fiestas, parties,
no.
holy days, they're fabulous when they have this.
No, we,
Just tourists.
yeah.
Okay, hardworking tourists.
And one of the recreational things they had on the base was a stable of horses. And you can go and ride. They had I don't know how many acres it was, a huge area. And you could take out a horse and go riding around in it.
Were there any of these fancy, well-trained, high-stepping horses?
No, I didn't see any of the Andalusians or whatever they were.
Andalusian,
No, these were more trained to go back to the barn, really. So.
Bite you first and then scram. Ever have that happen to you?
No.
You try to ride, and all of a sudden, you thought the saddle was there. It's no saddle. They just spill right up from underneath you. But that was great. I shouldn't take you to your
fine.
show, but it's a lot of good memories, really.
Yeah.
And you can have some good time. When you came back, where'd you come back to this time? Back to Davisville?
Back to Davisville again. And then
And do you have any 30-day leaves on all these?
Every time we were back in Davisville, we did. And, living in New Hampshire, I came home most weekends anyway.
Oh.
And a fellow that I was in with lived in New Boston, New Hampshire, which isn't, far.
Double up and carpool
so
almost. Yeah.
We'd hop in his 55 Chevy and head home, And then on Sunday night, my mother would bring me over to his house, and his mother would put me up for the night and give us breakfast in the morning,
a
and
bag
off
of
we'd go.
sandwiches, take off.
Yeah.
That's
And
great.
no.
Now, I'm being nosy, but in all this time, have you been in, what's the word, sparking any gal or thinking of marriage, or is this still down the road as far as you're concerned? You're
Down the
still
road,
single?
really. You know, I looked at a lot of girls, but
Oh,
you know,
strange.
I was, you know,
How'd they look at you?
not
Uh-huh.
very often, I think.
Okay,
You know, I mean,
we don't go down that road.
being, you know,
Okay,
when
but that's,
I went into,
it's downstream, though.
I went into boot camp at 5'3", and I came out and I was about 5'5", and I finally grew to 5'6", so I wasn't the tall,
Hell, they
handsome
stretch
guy. Yeah, they did, yeah.
Moustache in your underwear or something. huh?
Regular meals and a lot of exercise.
Well, you get exercise, that's
Yeah.
for sure. Okay, now, I think now we're about ready. Next time you ship off, you're going to Nam, is that correct?
Right, we went back to Port Hueneme first.
Mhm. Any more training back there?
No, actually, from after Spain, we went to Camp Lejeune again.
Okay.
And the first time I was there, I was on what they call a 106 recoilless rifle, which mounts on a Jeep. And the shell is perforated so that when you fire it, half of the charge goes out the back and the other half pushes the projectile out the front. So it doesn't move.
Oh, okay.
Like a howitzer.
Some guy's down trying to line up the rear sight. He wouldn't last too damn long.
No. So, but the thing they told you was, because it left a plume of dust behind you, you better hit the target when you shoot it, because then you got to start your Jeep and go somewhere else because they know where you were. Yeah. And the second time I went down, I was in charge of machine gun squad. And
Have you gotten a rate yet? Third class?
I did. I think by then I
Okay.
was third class. Yeah, I was a little bit slow getting around to that, but you know, so I had training in machine guns and never had to use it. But
Now, did you have to check out on the 50s and the 30s machine guns?
actually, they were what was called an M60, which fired the NATO round, the 7.62 round.
7.6, yeah.
They had a 50 caliber on the 106 that they used for spotting, because you'd fire the 50 caliber first with a phosphorus tracer, and you could see where it went. And if it hit the tank, then you push the other button, and you know, we just shot up tanks, but it was interesting.
Yeah, the best part out, they're not shooting back at you.
Right.
It makes it a lot easier.
Yep.
And now, when did you go to Nam? How'd you get there? Fly over or
We
boat?
flew in C-130s. I think the battalion went in like 7 C-130s, and we flew from California to Hawaii. I got off the plane there to eat lunch, and actually, I don't know if it was Hickam Field or where, but there were still bullet holes in the barracks from World War II. And from there we flew to Guam and got a box lunch, and then we flew to Okinawa with another box lunch, and then we flew into Vietnam from there. It was 30 hours in the air, sitting upright in a nylon mesh seat.
Anybody get airsick?
I don't think so.
Okay. Sometimes that will happen.
I've always napped well, so I slept most of the way.
Well trained you.
Yeah. Right.
Grab 60 no matter where you were, huh?
And so then when we landed, the battalion that was there was on its way out.
Okay, you're replacing them?
Right. And we were actually only the 2nd battalion there, so. And
Where was there? Where in Nam?
Chu Lai,
July?
which is south of Da Nang, but way north of Saigon. So, and the first night I had guard duty on one of the bunkers along the beach, because our tents were, I don't know, 500 feet from the beach, maybe something like that. So we were, you know, watching the ocean go by, and then we saw a big column of smoke coming from over by the airfield, and one of the C-130s had crashed. But it turned out it was the regularly scheduled mail plane. It wasn't.
So
it wasn't one of ours coming in or one of the others going out, you know. But we didn't know that for a few hours, you know.
So how were you treated when you landed there? Anything special as far as who you were and what you were doing and where you were stationed? when you get there onto Nam? Or is that a hard question? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it's a hard question to answer, but the Marines had a main line of resistance like 3 miles out from our base, so I mean it was never a dangerous situation
Like
most
wasn't any
times.
Tet thing, something like that.
No, that came after.
Yeah.
And you know, so we had our chow hall, and
Oh, what were you doing while you were there? More construction work, bunker repair, mats lines?
the main project that we had was maintaining one of the prefabricated metal runways that we'd learned how to do previously, and they just kind of leveled off the rice paddy, added some extra dirt, and laid this thing down. So as the planes came in, they would kind of pump it, and we'd take out a 100 or 200 foot section of matting and dump cement bags there, and then they'd run an industrial rototiller over it and smooth it off, and they would slide everything back, and then they'd be using it the next day.
Oh yeah.
And I was working nights on that. There were some of the other
nights with lights.
Yeah. Some of the other crews were building a hospital out of Quonset huts and a more permanent base than what we had, because the original base was just tents on 2x4 frames, and our people were putting metal roofs on the framework and screens and
keep the shrapnel from coming in.
Right.
Really?
Yeah. Well, you know, just to be a little more permanent than canvas, you know. And so I ended up working nights. And one of the primary job that I had was riding with a fellow with a forklift, and we'd go to where the piles of matting were stored and pick them up on his forks, and I'd take the 2x4s that were underneath to keep them out of the dirt, and we'd go to wherever we were.
So you're a lumber picker.
Right. So we'd go to wherever they were assembling and drop it. And one night I was putting the 2x4s under at the same time he was dropping the load, and got my hand pinched between the 2x4s, and it took out a piece of skin and kind of ripped the rest of it. So I went to the hospital from there, and the corpsman threw me a bottle of Pfizer Hex and said, "Here, wash it out good." Yeah. And then the Marines were getting hit that night, so the hospital was busy, and they laid me on a gurney and put a board out, put my arm out on the board, and the fellow took skin from here because it was accessible and sewed it in.
Wow.
And
now, does this qualify for a Purple Heart?
No.
Okay, just asking. You'd be surprised.
No,
some strange things did happen.
Just work related.
Was that the one time that you were under fire, if you will? No, seriously. Have talked to several of the guys, and I hope we can get a lot more of them. They were on QRT, quick response teams, and out of nowhere there'd be a word that there's 2 or 3 groups of people, whatever, coming in here or coming over there or starting to agitate over here to draw fire someplace else. Were you ever in that kind of situation where you were under attack?
Not really. There was one night when somebody was shooting at an incoming airplane. So they scrambled the Marines around the area, and we sat down in front of our floodlights and watched them go by and
pass the popcorn. Oh, get out of here.
And and that was it.
That was it.
They said at one point they thought that someone was in the area where the fuel tanks were, but they never found anybody that I knew of. So. But I did find out there's a speed limit on runways, because they'd shut the runway down while we were doing the work unless they needed half of it, and then they had a catapult system like on an aircraft carrier, and they could catapult the fighters off with that. But at the end of the night, we've put all the debris in the back of a dump truck, and I got to drive the dump truck back, so I had 8,000 feet, and I wound it right up to 55 miles an hour.
Oh, hell bent for leather, huh?
And found out the speed limit was 15. But
okay, some guy writes you up?
No, actually
Or
they
you
didn't.
sergeant of the guard, it made no difference.
Well, I wasn't then.
Oh,
but-
okay. You never know. Those stripes come handy sometimes.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But I did get reprimanded, but that was it,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, what the hell?
Yeah. And, you know, so that was my
No.
adventure.
I'm not cutting short your tour there, but were there any other spots that you went to, or do you know? Is this the end of your tour?
Pretty much the end of my tour, because I had a skin graft, the hospital that we had wasn't clean enough for skin grafts.
Oh.
So they flew me by helicopter to Da Nang, and then from there to the Philippines. And from the Philippines, I went to Yokosuka, Japan, to a naval hospital there that had been a Japanese naval hospital. And then they took care of my skin graft for a month, because the graft was here, they didn't want me to tear the skin out, so they put my fingers like this and wrapped it up in a ball.
So you couldn't do anything.
And after a month there, they sent me to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, to the Naval Hospital, where they did therapy to get my fingers to work again, because they didn't.
No, they atrophied probably.
Yeah. And I spent 2 months there in therapy. And then when everything worked fine, I only had a month left in the service, so it wasn't worth attaching me anywhere else. So they attached me to the hospital maintenance.
Oh.
Except that's a civilian job, so a military person couldn't do anything.
So you're gainfully unemployed.
Right.
You're sneaky.
Yeah.
You're sneaky.
And so then I got my separation from the Navy was at the hospital.
Oh, not down to Boston or anything like
Right.
that?
Yeah.
And then what happened? Now, did you take advantage, I don't know whether it's still in effect, the GI Bill to continue any education or start an education?
I went to Keene State and took a night course in math, and I decided that I wasn't going to sit around, and I already had a job when I got out. So
Okay, so you were employable.
yeah,
Good.
and you know, I sometimes wonder if I'd have done things differently had I, you know, gone to college, but I really had no
You
desire
can't
to.
look back. You can't
No.
look back. 'Cause you can't change everything
Right.
to fit.
And by then I did find a girl, so
Oh, okay,
That-
here we go.
that
A little violin music.
right, yeah,
Seriously.
yeah.
How are you and your bride and your kids, if you have any?
this could be tough. We've been married for 44 years, and one of our daughters died
Oh, that's bad.
last year.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to bring it up.
You know, it's
It's a hole you'll never fill.
yeah. But
But other
we
than
do
that,
have,
how's
we
the
do have
others?
another daughter that lives in Maine, and a son that lives in Westmoreland, New Hampshire. And we have 2 grandchildren, so
Good.
it,
Good. Makes up for
yeah.
it somehow.
yeah.
Yeah. 44 years, huh? Just getting started.
We actually met on a blind date with a fellow that I had grown up with who was in the Marines, and a friend of my wife's was writing to him as a pen pal, and wanted to meet him, so she said, well, you know, why don't you bring Skip down to my house? And
You, Skip?
no, Skip was the other fellow. And she said, well, I'll have my cousin, my wife is like second cousin to this person. And so we were going down on a Tuesday night, and my wife said, well, I'm not going anywhere on a Tuesday night. So,
there.
you know, I didn't meet her, but the next weekend, Skip's brother was getting married, and Skip was in the wedding, and I was in the wedding, and after the wedding, Karen asked my wife, June, if she wanted to go out to the movies, and that's how we met.
Oh.
Yeah.
So there was a happy ending.
It was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the beginning of a happy ending. That's good.
And then I found out on our second date that her father had been a CB also.
Oh, well, you're good company.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I admit to a prejudice.
Yeah.
Good. Now, with all you've said and done and the places you've been, not a wrap-up, but Was your experience in the service positive or negative as far as how it's impacted your life and what it helps you do or not?
I would say positive, yeah.
Any particular reason of any feeling?
My wife said the people that have been in the service are more mature.
You mean you're just a bunch of old goats, huh? Yeah. But now, seriously, any advice if we're qualified to give to some of these younger kids coming by today who may or may not know what they want? Would you recommend that to look into joining any of the branches, whatever the branch, to kind of straighten them out and give them a little bit of focus
I
in
would
life?
say yes, you know, but I mean it is a different world. You know, my son never had any interest in.
Oh, is he in the service now?
No.
Oh.
You know, he'd never had any interest in the military. He was in Boy Scouts like I was, you know, but that was the extent of it. You know. And I never really pushed him, you know. You know, I think he turned out quite well without.
Oh yeah.
Without the military.
There's a lot of different roads to take in life.
And you know, but I mean, it is an opportunity for travel, really. And you know, you do get to meet people from
all
everywhere.
kinds of people.
Yeah.
Good and bad, short, wide, and fat.
And when we were in Port Hueneme before we went to Vietnam, it was over Thanksgiving. So people in the area opened their houses to people to go there for Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah. And it was a nice family, you know.
You ever keep in touch then? Were you like that?
I did for a while. And when I was in Japan, I had written to them to tell them that I was in the hospital, and the fellow said, well, our son was into wrestling, and high school wrestling, and they had gone to Japan and wrestled somewhere, and the people from Japan had come over. So he says, well, there's this guy that lives in Yokohama, I think it's Yokohama, that I know, you know, why don't you give him a call and go visit? So one night when I was in the hospital, I had somebody write in Japanese where I wanted to go, and got on the train, went to Yokohama, and got a cab and dropped me off at his house, and we had a nice, you know, hour chat.
Good. Did it ever continue, or was it just a quick meeting?
Yeah,
and hello,
that was
goodbye?
it. You know,
sayonara.
But I mean, it was something that never would have happened if we hadn't gone out for Thanksgiving dinner. You know. And the funny thing about this is, our older daughter lived in California for 5 years, so I was going to MCB4 reunions in California, and the fellow that was working on the forklift went to one of these reunions. And I totally lost touch with him. I didn't know where he lived. He was from Maryland originally, but he lived in California. And I said, hi, Mike, you know, and I'm Andy Mackey, and he shook my hand, and I held my hand up like that. And, you know, he was just amazed.
Yeah.
But
it's a good feeling.
It is.
I know. I'm changing the nickel, but we went to our one and only reunion down at Gulfport, because I'd never been back there, if you will. And we're kind of, you know, looking, how was he 50 years ago, thinner or fatter, so on. And one guy came out, hey, Stevens, you still alive? Without being smart, I said, no, you dummy, I'm a ghost, come back to haunt you. And we had the best time after that. But it's a good feeling.
It is. And I found out that he said that he had nightmares about this.
Oh, yeah, you will.
For years and years. And, you know, I mean, I think about it occasionally, but I don't think I've ever had nightmares.
No.
And, you know, if I had contacted him sooner than 25 years afterwards.
Have you continued making any of the reunions, or is it kind of gone
I have,
down?
Yeah. And the MCB4 has a reunion association. And last year in May, we went to New Orleans for a reunion. And this fellow from California didn't come out, but I call him once or twice a year.
Okay. And back and forth.
Yeah.
Phone calls and letters. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a fellow who just passed away last year from Kansas, we stayed in touch with Christmas cards and stuff, basically. And we had some reunions in Branson, Missouri. So they
For the
drove.
music capital, huh?
Right. So they drove from where they lived on the western part of Kansas to Branson, and we went around in their vehicle and had a great time.
Oh, yeah, when you ride with the natives, you know where the real places are.
Right. Yeah. And I've since joined the Navy Seabee Veterans of America, which is something I've got to get you into.
Okay, maybe.
And we've had some New England jamborees where it's just a one-day meal and sit around and shoot the breeze with whoever you know.
But it's fun.
Yeah.
Keep in touch.
Yeah.
Good. I may take you up on that if I can get a note from my wife to be out late at night sometime.
All right.
Okay. Andy, in words of one syllable, I thank you for sharing it with us.
Oh,
And it's good fun. Okay?
yes.
Folks, we'll say it's a wrap. Again, it's just one more guy who did his thing. You don't have to be Audie Murphy, as I've said many times. If you had a job to do and you did it, please come and see us. Being very crude right now, if you think about it realistically, old guys like me, we're fighting the clock and the calendar, because every day that I have a bad habit now of reading the damn obituaries, you see that little star up there, and the thing that makes it most disappointing, a one-liner, he or she was a veteran of the Navy, the Army, whatever. It doesn't say a damn thing about who he was, what he did, and how he did it, and how it impacted what has gone on afterwards. So, again, please, all I can do is say, please come and see us. We'll give you the best treatment we can and make sure that your story will be something you and your kids and your grandkids will be happy to share, okay? The address, you can see me on the back here, anytime, night or day. Name is Bob Stevens. I thank you for watching. Stay healthy and come and see us. Goodbye.